All right, hey everybody. It's the 14th of November, 2024. This is Gimbalabs Live Open Spaces. We're getting together to talk about what we're working on and what we might do next. So where we left off last week is we were in the driver mapping process, getting some thoughts together around where'd it go? Oh, here it is, down here. Um, where is that governance proposal? Do you have this one? Yeah, okay, good. That's where we left off. All right, so I wanted to just make sure we have that one here. But what's going on here? Well, we have a Notion table full of projects, some of which are in progress. And the reason these are in progress is we've been using the process here in this meeting on Thursdays at 14:30 UTC to create and then to consent on proposals to move forward. And coming up next week, I think we'll have a review of these because the last Thursday in November is a holiday here in the United States. So I won't be able to make it. So we could do a quick review of these next week. But where we try to spend most of our time is on new proposals that are being drafted and on proposals that are ready for final consent and moved to the in progress phase. So I have this one around financial accounting. I just haven't had time to work on it. So I'm going to backlog that for just a moment. We do need to get to that, but it's been a season of building around here. I think the DREP one is probably still relevant. And is Martin here or anybody to represent Dandelion Light? All right, let's backlog that one for the moment as well. Up here in the new projects, is there anything people want to call out?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the Astera front end with the T3 app. This is something that I'm just beginning to get familiar with, which is the T3 app framework. And with the idea of working with Astera, yeah, it's something that Harsha and I just put together just recently.
Oh man, thanks for getting that going. Yeah, this for anybody who hasn't heard of Asteria, this is a project from TX Pipe, and it's a game made of a bunch of smart contracts, but it might need a nice front end. So we were hanging out at Live Coding yesterday, and this idea came up. I would be really excited to get a project like this underway. So can we aspirationally throw that one on the agenda for today?
I'd love to.
See if we get to it. Anything else in the list of proposals that people might want to talk about today?
Have
Cool.
we finished and solidified the DREP, the Gimbalab DREP one,
Perfect.
or
Yeah. So now
whoever's maintaining?
we can close out the rest of these distractions. These are the two proposals we really want to focus on today. And first on our agenda is revisiting this Gimbalabs DREP proposal. So this is a work in progress. And for anybody who wasn't here, we started to have a conversation about what's the driver for this proposal last week. We had a lot of ideas on the table, and I tried to take some notes, but I think it would serve us to really formally go through the process of naming what's the description of what we're talking about here. Because it's not clear to me whether we're talking about building software tooling or just participating in governance as a DREP. And maybe it's both, but we really have to figure out like why we want to have a project related to DREPs. And I was wondering, Newman, not to put you on the spot, but I know this is something that you've been really trying to practice. Would you have any interest in taking us through like a 30-minute version of a driver mapping process?
Yeah. I mean, I can follow that. I can follow that graphic if you want. And I think it might be good because I haven't been around for the discussions in the last month. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and for anybody who doesn't know this, the Open Decentralized Innovation Network, ODIN, they have a couple of meetings each week, and one of the things they've been working on is facilitation of these kind of S3 processes. So it's really great that we have the chance to apply those facilitation skills here. No, I'm happy to be the recorder here and keep sharing screen if you want to lead us,
Sure
or
enough.
is it better for you to share screen?
No, actually, it does work out if you would serve in that way.
Cool.
Um,
And let me know if you want me to share anything else. I'll pop around to it.
for sure. I guess the way to begin is with a show of hands on the screen or something in the chat. Is everyone relatively familiar with this project or with this uh, driver mapping, this little sequence? What is the current situation? What are the effects of the situation on the organization? What is the need of the organization in relation to this situation? And what will be the impact of attending to that need? And all of those questions come when we bring them together, will create like a comprehensive description of of the driver. It's also, the motivation or the need. Um, is anyone not familiar with it? Has anyone never done it before?
I haven't really done it before. Is this just like a process description, or is this something more descriptive to the problem? Is this kind of like a process that we go through to kind of come up with like a path forward?
Yeah, it's basically to come up with that driver statement. And you can look at the Gimbalabs primary driver, which is right above it. Um, uh, and this process can take 30 minutes and it also can take 30 days. Um, but I believe that you could do it in a in a brief time. Uh, so I guess the reason why I ask that is that it we may go a little fast and loose, and you may be like, oh, familiar might um get the wrong idea. But we can read the primary driver of Gimbal Labs to provide open, replicable, safe spaces to learn, to explore, and to empower individuals and organizations anywhere so that we can solve meaningful problems. And so the a driver for this proposal would clarify to anyone very briefly what the proposal is about, what the project is about. And it's really good to do in a group because then people have different perspectives. I'm sure you're all familiar with the big elephant story. Um, so if you don't know about it, then I would um, maybe hold your questions to the end, because I would love to come up with a driver in the next by 10:20 today, at this meeting. So and this is wonderful because I'm genuinely asking, like, what is the current situation that would prompt this proposal? And is there an owner or like source for this proposal? Because that would be who I would direct this to, that question. Was there somebody that brought the proposal?
Yes, it was me.
All right, Steve. Steve, uh, let's talk about the current situation for a second. I mean, Cardano is going through the governance process with the DREPs. Um, Anything more specific?
Yeah, I mean, like I spent some time thinking about this after going to Adam Rush's DREP workshop in February. and Adam Dean was there, Jenny was there. It was a good crowd. Mike was there. Mike from Canada, Mike Hornan. And they were, between Adam, Mike, and Adam, it was the first time, like I'd been around people who had really thought about the implications of this construct that has been arbitrarily and abstractly built for the Cardano community.
Okay.
And I felt like, and they explained at length different scenarios of organizations registering as DREPs and why that would be so, why it would be good if it were so. And, I thought about it then. I brought it to the playground community as a question back in March, and we just kind of shot the shit about it. Never got very deep with it. There's always so many things going on, and it was with some trepidation that I brought it back a few weeks ago to this group, the Open Spaces group, because I know how hard everybody's working. However, there's not a lot of ADA represented in the DREPs that have registered to this point.
Okay.
And there are not a lot of unusual characters registering. They are the usual suspects, the people that are most visible in the community have registered. And in that group, there's not a group there that I dislike or I worry about or anything like that. But I've felt, always that Gimbalabs represents a perspective that is really pretty unique. I mean, obviously there's other people involved in education. There's other people kind of doing some of the things that Gimbalabs does, but we do things from with a point of view that I feel should be a choice, right? For people looking to delegate their voting power. I think that the perspective that Gimbalabs has represents a perspective that is not out there.
Okay.
And I think that that embodies quite a few aspects, in terms of idealism, but also, a pragmatic point of view. Can you build it? It's okay if you have an opinion, but can you build it? Can you make it visible? And so, yeah, that's what drove me to come up with this. And I could write probably a couple of thousand words answering these questions, but I don't think it's necessary.
Well,
But
I mean,
you,
given
Newman, with your incredible vocabulary and verbal skills, I think you can synopsize well.
nice. Well, I feel like that's a good description of the situation, meaning that this DREP function is coming online. That one of the things that stood out there is like the usual suspects of DREPs from our community. Not that there's anything bad with that, but there's,
No, not at
and
all.
then is the and then I wrote this question down in the notes, and if anyone has access to the Notion, I welcome you to put notes here or in the chat, like some folks are doing.
Yeah, I'll grab notes from the chat if anybody drops in there too.
Perfect. Like, is this perspective, the Gimbalabs perspective represented? And that's perspective comes from the education side of things, the builder community side of things, the self-governance side of things. Um, and then like is that collective perspective brought to bear, in the DREP, you know, um, I feel like that's a pretty good description of the current situation. Does anyone else have like
Yeah,
a person?
I'm adding one right here. Like we have some developers, like, including myself. I know Adrian is really interested in this. Nelson and I have been talking about it. Mix has been building things. Max started hanging around. He said he couldn't make it this week. But we have a bunch of us who really do want to experiment with, the
Oh, wait a minute, you cut out a
I
bit.
just muted myself when I started typing, right? Like we'll call it like the on-chain tech
Okay.
of governance validators and how those connect to DREPs. So we have the technical will to want to do something here.
Yeah, and that was really exciting to me when Adrian brought up, when we had our first discussion about this, that we could do this differently than some of this blah blah we're seeing about multi-sigs that other teams are doing, and I don't mean blah blah, you know what I'm saying? It's just kind of the usual kind of conversation about multi-sigs, and I want to point out that like there's a value proposition in Gimbalabs doing this that I don't know how many people realize. I was in a conversation with Adam Dean a couple of weeks ago, and he shared this um, that he spent a lot of time in Japan this year, and it's always kind of been a question: where's those Japanese whales? In my mind, I've always wondered about that, and he brought this up, just kind of independently, that he got in a conversation with some of these Japanese whales, and they are people who will use no other wallet than Daedalus.
Okay.
And Daedalus has no voting mechanism built into it yet, although that's being worked on. And Gimbalabs has done some really great outreach, and I don't know how to synopsize in a word. They're making available their product, the PBLs and Andamio in Japanese. And there's a reputation in Japan that Gimbalabs has. And, I think that there's something Japanese in the way that we think about things. I'll say it like that. There are aspects of why we do what we do that is reflected in Japanese culture historically. And I believe that this is being of service, further service to that community who has had so little voice in the Cardano community.
Okay. All right.
And that
If
probably bleeds over to all of Southeast Asia.
yeah. Um, let's move on. Let's sort of focus now on what is the effect of the situation on the organization. And the organization we're talking about now is Gimbalabs. What is the effect of this, the DREP thing and all that, what we just talked about on Gimbalabs? Now this can get kind of juicy, right? Because in my mind, like, if next year with DREPs, like it really could be that Gimbalabs is directly affected. Um, does anyone have like a clear vision of like, oh yeah, if what all of this DREP stuff how it might affect Gimbalabs? And I'm going to give you a few seconds to respond. You can either come off mute and talk or put something in the chat.
Well, I'm just gonna. So, what I think right now, the current, like where we are and where Gimbal Labs is the limiting factor on Cardano is that there aren't tools that connect it to the wider society in general. And like the way that I see people using it right now, they're all focused on I don't want to say the wrong things, but we could right now with the Cardano blockchain, the tools it has, change a lot of things in society, and we need developers on the blockchain that can create these tools and have that kind of wider vision that I think is kind of lacking in the blockchain community in general. So, Gimbalabs, obviously there's a bunch of developers here, people who are developing tools for Cardano. There's a lot of talent there, and that's going to be the core limitation on the blockchain going forward is how many people are developing tools and how many people are adding value to the blockchain through those tools. Because most people in the world, like, they don't know what blockchain is, they don't know how it works, they don't have any idea how any of this stuff happens. They have vague ideas that it's a scam, but we can build tools. Some of our partners are already building tools where people don't even know they're using the blockchain, and we need to have that vision going forward. So building tools using the blockchain that apply to the world and make the world better is kind of the situation that I see, and how Gimbalabs could use this blockchain to make changes.
All right. No, I think that definitely fits. That these DREP functionalities, I'm trying to put it in the form of like give us the opportunity, give us Gimbalabs developers, Gimbalabs educators, Gimbalabs governance folk, there is an opportunity. Yeah. And
I think
so
that's a really nice impact statement too, right?
yeah,
If we build
yeah,
some tools, they might provide a chance to connect Cardano to some broader world.
yeah, yeah.
And
Okay.
like right now, like I was talking to
I
Cash
see Mix
over.
has been waiting for a minute,
Oh yeah,
Colin.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. So actually, I wanted to point out several things. The first is we don't know really what's going to happen in 2025, 2026 with all the reps. It's really new technology, and everyone is going to test that. Same thing with staking, that so many things came up after that. For example, no one could have predict that there will be something called ISPO. And if you had really good stake pool back in 2020, you were normally chosen to be an ISPO. So it would generate something, a revenue for you. So by being DREPs, I believe now we will eventually create enough credibility to be part of those movement or opportunity in future, which we don't know. But I believe now it's the time to build that. And the thing is, for creating that credibility, we have to be really transparent, talking about the votes. Why did we vote yes, no, absent, also all sort of thing. And doing that actually will really promote us. And why again promoting us? Not just only because of those opportunity. Well, the thing that people are already talking about is the next catalyst, whole project catalyst, and Intersect grants will be heavily relies on the DREPs and the voting power. So there is this thing that they want to migrate to the whole thing. So if we want to continue to participate in Project Catalyst as a proposer or reviewer or just voter or something, DREPs would play a role in that future. And the second is if we want to become a proposer, because of this process of credibility, people now have that now they can trust, and not just trust based on the vote, based on the on-chain records, based on the votes we already gave. So if, for example, we put a proposal about making things better, creating a tools to solve something, we can just reference our history of votes and see that, hey, we just been working on this thing and give us your vote, support a proposal so that we can solve this thing. And eventually we can create a proposal for treasury, like proposal contracts and voting contract and all sorts of things. So we maybe, I don't know, that's I'm not, but that's maybe we can fund Gimbalabs and projects who might come to Gimbalabs because we have enough credibility and funds to create those proposal contracts to get votes or to get to even say their words on chain to get something from treasury, you know. So I think this can be something, of course, of value, but who knows, you know. But I believe really the opportunity is big. But sure, it really depends on us how we behave to DREPs. If we behave like a degens, and yeah, of course, we won't get that credibility, that trust. But I believe we will have this opportunity of being a role model to other DREPs as well, to just talk about our votes, why we did that, why we are going to do that, even blog posts, you know, sessions, I don't know, even if live coding to just show how we just voted and how does it look like on chain. Wow, look at this number, this is our vote, etc. You know. Thank you.
Yep, that was wonderful, Mix. Um,
I just wanted to jump in and say, on top of what Mix is saying, it is so dynamic. Like today or tomorrow, the actual budget numbers are going to come out from Intersect, and we'll kind of see what's kind of been planned for all of us in terms of how money is apportioned, and that in combination with what Mix is saying, it's like we have a lot of things to analyze about not just who we are and how we want to represent ourselves in the future, but where energy is being going to be directed, for the next year or two. And I think that yeah, we're just, we're like everybody else in the community. Like this, and when I say usual suspects or typical, types, and, like a said something in the chat that I agreed with Andrew. It's we kind of know how some people are going to behave in the community, and we kind of know that we're not like them, and that's good stuff. There is going to be an ever-growing number of ways to express the perspective that we consistently embody, and there's going to be opportunities in that. Yeah, I'm just piling on to what Nick says. This is part of the process that we have all been engaging in.
okay. Um, all right. So let's see, Colin, do you have another one? And I do want to remind folks, just because time hacks are just really great. I would love to in about 10 minutes to come back and sort of see what we've written, and then maybe do a round on what everybody's sort of feeling about this, or if they have questions and comments. So Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what I'm looking at, like right now, I'm building a tool where people can build the vote scripts. I'm just doing it to teach myself how to build these things and kind of how to get involved. Um, like those kind of tools where we make the blockchain more accessible would be kind of what I would be starting to focus on for people who are not familiar with blockchain. And then also do more of a model where you build something and then you ask them if they want to make it open source, right? So you already built it. If there it works, like people can audit it, and then have the funding be more towards, all right, well, we want to make this open source or we don't, rather than say, hey, I have this great idea, give me a bunch of ADA, it might get finished type of thing, which is what we have been doing. So like trying to change that perspective, get people to build stuff before they ask for money, basically.
Okay. All right.
And then
So
build tools that will make money on their own without it, right? Build things that actually have value. And then if they don't want to make it open source, that's fine. We'll just use it ourselves type of framework.
yeah, that's interesting. The
Can
value.
I throw in one that got me fired up?
Yeah, yeah.
Nadia and Scott and I think all kind of had a similar idea at the same moment, just this concept of how we can uniquely blend tooling with community, right? Kind of like we're doing here, right? But I think to speak to formally describing the uniqueness that Steve is pointing to, I think we do have a nice way of not only building things, but talking about the impact of those things in a space like this. And when it comes to like framing a need, if the project we work on here gave us a chance to do that, right? To build software and to better describe these processes that we have for talking to each other about that software as we build it, I think that might be an exciting frame. And I can imagine it connecting to these impact statements that are starting to emerge below.
Okay. And that really is the need of like one of the good things about this process is it really does focus, and I think it's done a great job of like bringing out many, many notes. But then we can always go back to these questions. So I would love to, if we could, like look again at the situation, and then these, our needs in relation to this situation, and then the impact of attending to those needs. The need of, I think one of the things that I heard, and this is sort of as a participant, not necessarily as a facilitator, is like to codify or somehow get a head around the Gimbalabs way. Like this is an opportunity for us to show who Gimbalabs is with this new DREP function and opportunities that are there. For instance, the building of the tooling. I think that would be a way for Gimbalabs to respond or to relate to the situation. It feels. Does anyone else have like the need of Gimbalabs in relation to this? What do we need to do, I guess? Yeah.
Like I think that we think collectively and as individuals, in a way that allows for the group and the individuals in the group to express the nuances that are often glossed over. There's a lot of nuance that's given verbal acknowledgement, and yet there's some driving blah, and it doesn't really, because the emphasis is on the obvious, the nuance is often just ignored. And this is what I this is what I found so intriguing when Adrian started describing our decision-making process using these new functionalities and validators. It's like it feels like, and I'm probably glossing over too much of the technical detail, but it feels like we can decide with nuance by using these mechanics in a way that other people are going to lose, the nuance. So
Okay.
that's just a thought. Because like we don't piss on anybody really in Gimbalabs, unless they're just outright dicks. But we accept everybody's perspective in this group, and we have to do that as a society and just within the Cardano community, because there's already just untold numbers of strange people doing strange things.
Which I generally like.
Yeah.
Um, so let's try to wrap up with like what are the impacts of attending. So I can read off some of these and maybe that will give us some insight. This is the last one, and then the idea being that and you can use ChatGPT for this, is to synthesize these into a description. But what will be the impact of attending to these opportunities? We talked a lot about opportunities and these needs for Gimbalabs. And I can read what the notes that we've create tools that connect Cardano to the broader world, having access to funds, to build tools that allow for direct and collaborative governance of funding pools, which creates potential for Gimbalabs to move forward in a financially sustainable model. I see that as a big impact, like the financial stability is a big impact. Creating a new communications and promotions model for serving as a DREP, like utilizing non-traditional avenues for connecting and explaining. That's definitely an impact. That connecting and explaining the governance and education and builder perspectives of Gimbalabs. Another impact being could encourage people to become DREPs who might not have participated because they weren't comfortable with the existing ways, like expanding the DREP population would be an impact that Gimbalabs could make by attending to these needs and situations. Also for non-confident developers, being able to participate in both the worlds of governance and building in a project like this and represent the needs of community members, community members in that same boat. Non-confident developer is a beautiful concept. But yeah, like junior developers or people just trying, that are seeing the perspective of what the blockchain could bring. Any other sort of impacts? And we can go through the statements. Like I think that up in the section.
Newman, I
Yeah.
took your bait and I did feed these notes into an LLM that knows about S3. Is it worth it, or would that cloud our judgment?
I don't know.
No. Anybody lies
Steve says
evil.
no. Steve says no.
Motion on the floor, ignore it. Okay.
No, I mean, it depends on what it says, but it always feels mushy, whatever I see after that.
Right. Steve's like Han Solo telling 3PO, never tell him the odds. Never tell me the odds. Oh man. Well, I think let's then this is about 30 minutes. We're at the 30-minute time. I feel like that we've had a pretty good discussion, and we've collected a good amount of notes and details. The funny thing is, and now I can kind of step out of facilitator role, and really just ask like I see the situation, and I see how it relates to Gimbalabs in these very specific ways, like building software, um, you know, that there are all these opportunities for Gimbalabs, our community, um, with this new situation that's coming online, with Cardano governance and the DREPs. What, like, based on what you see now, what is the proposal? Um, like, and does this change, like going through this process, do you see it differently? Like, yeah, okay, so there are some proposals. So someone wrote some proposal stuff um down here, and I'll just go to the title and description, making Gimbalabs a DREP collective. Okay. So, okay. Here's the background and rationale. After 4 years of establishing a standing, building reputation in the Cardano ecosystem, Gimbalabs has gained recognition for community-driven education and contributing to blockchain innovation as a trusted and respectable community. I agree with all these things. There's a shared sentiment that Gimbalabs community should take a more active role in governance as a DREP. This proposal seeks to streamline the process for collective decision-making using a DREP structure. So the title is make Gimbalabs a DREP.
Can I add words to this little bit right here?
I think,
Like
yeah, I
if
can't
we
see why
just
not.
add something about the tooling, right? By building,
Oh, yeah.
right? By building validators to support uh, collective or shared DREP structures. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I mean the rest of the crew. It feels like in this process that we just did, there was quite a bit about tooling. Um, because the DREPs, as you know, we know the tooling and how we do the things, the soft tools, like the processes, like we just did a tool. It came from the S3. That's what in my mind I call a soft tool,
Yep.
a process.
Protocol. I love the word protocol in this context.
Protocol is a good one. Yeah. Such that we do it now and we can also do it later. It's a replicable thing to help us solve meaningful problems. Look at our Gimbalabs primary driver.
Using the word protocol makes me feel like I need a tie.
Oh, how does that make you feel?
I clean up, and I
You've
look
cleaned up
pretty
pretty
good in
good.
a tie. Yeah.
Um, yeah, protocol is, but it's interesting because it's a computer word. I love the idea of an open protocol, open data, uh, building things such that others can use it. This gets into our open source um, philosophy and mentality and mindset. Um, and then let's cruise on. Let's keep on cruising through. Intended outcome is for Gimbalabs to become a functioning DREP that allows the community to participate collectively in governance decisions using a token-based system for voting and validators for group decision making. Okay. Now, intended outcome, yeah, I love this one to be as specific as possible. Kind of like what we do with milestones, um, like evidence, like what would we turn in? Like what, or the systems theory, like what are the outputs of this proposal? So new tools are an output. Possibly a token-based system for voting and validators is an output. Tests and documentation is an output. I guess just a registered DREP as Gimbalabs is an output. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think so. At the end of this project, Gimbalabs would be a functioning DREP. Let's leave that.
I mean, you know, I'm always puzzled by the mix between modesty and pompousness. You know, like we, you know, like we are thought leaders. You know, I'm just going to posit that. You know, and this is actually stepping into it and going ahead and owning it by being a DREP. By being a DREP, you're saying, hey, I've thought about these issues, you know, we've thought about these issues, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to tell you why we did it. We're going to show you how we came to that conclusion. And that is leading. Right? That is leading.
Leading, being a thought leader. Yes, yeah.
In this community, that's what it is, you know, and the rest of the world is just being a responsible citizen. But in this community, it's being a thought leader.
And I see that as an impact of attending to the need. Gimbalabs becomes more of a thought leader.
Well, it's like manifesting the thought leadership, right? This is like on-chain manifestation of your thought leadership.
Okay.
You know, right now it's just an idea in our heads and the people that like us, you know.
How do these outcomes sound? If we build a project starting as soon as possible, where our goals are to build some new tools, test them and document them in spaces like these, implement some kind of, I would have an objection to including token-based. I'll put this in parentheses for now, but I would rather just assume that it's on chain.
Okay.
Does anybody have objections to me just taking the words token-based out because I don't want to assume that it is?
Yeah, I would agree with your opinion because I think we don't have to stick to something because we just wrote it here.
Yeah,
but maybe a token based.
But this is the time to be, you know, rigorous about this. So would anybody have objections to not yet committing to saying that there's, you know, this is going to be a plutocratic system, but just to say that we're going to use some on-chain stuff to create this?
Can you line it like strike through and just leave it there?
Yep.
That way people still have the gist of it.
I like that.
Beautiful.
At the end of the project, Gimbalabs will be a DREP, collectively managed with the tools we build. We'll provide access to educational materials about what we build so that other people can use it, allowing other people to try these systems out and participate this way.
That sounds pretty awesome.
And everybody who delegates to us gets a pony.
I love ponies.
Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult subject. I have the first question is, are we making tools or are we doing DREP voting? And then next to it, there's a very strange thought here, and I know that the opinions will be exploding now if I tell this, but let's do it anyway. Normally, somebody with a certain amount of ADA has maybe a lot of voting power because of that investment, and thus it is based. Normally, Cardano is based on a game theory practice where an investor has actually good or a positive self-interest because of that investment into a good mannership into the project by voting honestly, because the investment is back propagating. Now, if you go and do this and aggregate voting power as a group by using validators or whatever, then small ADA owners will then have a say and unbalance out the end result of that vote because they don't have invested equally. Therefore, I believe just voting without power just is a message that could be very valuable to the outside world, because people will also look at how much up or down votes are there instead of only the power that it represents. That's just a train of thought, and I leave it be here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's, I just would have, Kevin, I think that's going to flatten out over time. But there are people who pay attention to the number of voters, not the ADA, but you still have to show up, right? You know, like you have to be in the meetings, you have to go. And so there's that level of, it's about the ADA power, but you know, the volume of voices is listened to if they show up, and I mean, that's what bothers people and encourages people about Cardano. You know, it rubs both ways.
I guess I go back to these opportunities because it seemed like that really resonated with that. And that's in this sort of second section. What is the effect of the situation on Gimbalabs? And you could substitute the situation as, you know, dereps coming online and wider Cardano governance. So what is the effect of this derep and wider Cardano governance have on Gimbalabs? And we have those opportunities. And I think Mix sort of led the charge on this, like to promote Gimbalabs. Like where in our proposal could there be like promotion of Gimbalabs to build credibility? And this goes to, I think, maybe Steve's idea of thought leadership. So promoting and thought leadership, that to me, it's like some type of outreach functionality, like to sort of, you know, let people know that this is what we're working on. Engage with catalysts in the wider Cardano community. Here's another one that's a little more specific than outreach, is actually making the proposals, because DREPs vote on proposals, but they also make proposals. Am I correct there? I need this. I need whatever this is to kind of get, you know, more detailed, like what
Yes.
exactly is a DREP, you know?
So in order to make a proposal, you have to have 100,000 ADA and you have to lock it up for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Is how that kind of works. So when you put proposals up, it requires a lock of interest.
Okay. Yeah.
I
And
don't think DREPs are making proposals yet. I mean, there's only been, I don't know, like a handful.
No, the only ones that are allowed right now are info proposals, and there aren't going to be any actual budget proposals or any of the other, like there's 6 different kinds of proposals, but right now the only one you can do is info until chain 2. There's going to be another hard fork at some point, and then that'll open up the other proposals.
so, and I guess what I'm to drill down into, and maybe it's not really the time, depending on like what are we still working through this, the driver mapping or describing this organizational driver. And the driver is just something's happened and our community wants to respond to it. And the way we respond to things, because we're doing science and not just messing around, is that we write proposals. So we take all of this and, you know, based on this driver, we're like, oh, we could make a proposal. And maybe there's several proposals. Maybe there's a tooling proposal, or maybe there's an outreach proposal, or maybe there's just a proposal on becoming a DREP. So the one driver can have many proposals. So But I really think this is a great way to get all of these in a very structured way, get all these thoughts down. One of my favorite things about, and super simple thing about the S3 is doing a round. And it sometimes takes a lot of time, but if you feel, I would love, and I make it as a suggestion, a proposal, is like that we do a round, to just get maybe a word or two, or just a small brief thing on how, if you have any comment or suggestion or thought, feeling, it would be great to hear some other folks. James, do you think a round is would be good here?
I think it's a
I
great
know
time for it. Yeah.
we're coming up on sort of a time, but I feel like this was valuable for the whole session, meaning that we could go for the next 24 or 15 minutes or so, and then still have a time to check out.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile.
Yeah, cool. So let's have a round. I'm gonna go from my screen and ask Andrew, Watts, and then Adrian. And then the idea of a round, for those that don't know, is just a very brief, because we've got 15 people here. Just a very brief, a sentence or two about the process, or anything that you feel wasn't mentioned and you would like to bring up, or anything like that. And we'll take notes. You can put things in the chat, etc. So we'll just go down the screen, and we'll start with Andrew, and then we'll go to Adrian.
Okay, can you all hear me okay? My internet keeps dropping out, so I'm sorry. I might have missed some of the chat. So from a direct point of view, I guess where I'm coming from is more philosophical. I worry about, we've got this wonderful decentralized system in Cardano, and that I see this whole governance thing as a way. I'm cynical. I see a way that could be centralized, and I worry about it. So I think Gimbalabs could do something. I don't know what that entirely looks like at the moment, but if Gimbalabs could do something, then I think that's all for the best.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. Adrian, and then Colin. And if you don't want, you can also just say pass, or wait a few 8 seconds, and I'll go to the next person.
I think it is a great idea, and I would also love the challenge to implement everything on chain. Yeah, I think there are a lot of possibilities in the future, but maybe we should first focus on becoming self-DRAP and then build the tooling, so that we don't lose ourselves in just building a lot of tooling but never get our own DRAP running.
Could I ask you, Adrian? And I'm going to ask you directly, but I kind of mean that for everybody who's actually going to be involved in building the tooling. I'm wondering if at some point we could get a sketch in this proposal of, what would be built, and how long it would take, just so that we can get a better idea as a group for what's going to be involved in that.
So yeah, that depends on how we want to start. If we just start with the simplest version, then yeah, the on-chain part, that's maybe written in a day, I guess. But where most of the work has to be done is the off-chain tooling, as
Sure.
I'm not sure if there already exists even builders who are able to build transactions for validators of that kind.
Okay, well, then what I would be curious about then is when you say simple or not so simple, what are the choice points in that, in that process, so that we can kind of get a feel
mainly
for
that's how we collect, or better, how we decide on existing proposals.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just
well, I don't mean that we should talk about it now. I'm just saying that like this is something that I kind of would like to see in the formal proposal, but also as a discussion, either in another open space or even a separate meeting altogether. I would just like to be, into that conversation until I can't understand you anymore.
All right, Steve. What about you as far as a check-in round about the whole conversation? What stood out to you, or what can you?
I'm just glad everybody's into it. I wasn't really sure what kind of response that would come, when I came with the idea a few weeks ago. So I'm happy.
All right, that's cool. Colin, and then Emmanuel.
Sure, I would like to bring it back to kind of a, what we're doing here, what I feel like I want to do here. At a fundamental level is that the idea of sovereignty and at the network level decentralizing it. So right now everybody's going to Intersect and they're kind of asking for money, and Intersect decides who they want to give support to, right? And if you really want, I guess I don't want to say power in the situation, but you want to change the way things are, you have to be able to become self-sufficient and able to do it without somebody's help first. So if we can move forward and we get a core group of developers and we build a community of developers, and we have a vision, we can go this way. Eventually at the network level, Cardano, the blockchain can be implemented. Like, you can go buy about $200,000 worth of equipment. It's all open source. We could just stand up a clone and develop on our own clone. And, nobody wants to do something like that. But if you are capable of doing that and you don't need other groups, then you can just go do that and you can make the world better on your own. So what I would say is, we want to get to a point where we are not limited by our capabilities. We can do this on our own. And if these other people want to come in and help us, one, they'll be more likely to help us in that situation. So, if we're able to go and develop these things on our own, they will support that strength, as opposed to, and I don't want to, but most of the projects out there who like, I have a great idea, give me some ADA, and just kind of focusing on our core capability here and building that core capability.
Cool. I get it. Thanks, Colin. So Emmanuel and then Harsha. Yep.
Yeah. What I feel about this proposal, it's a well-tabled proposal.
Okay. Any before we go to Harsha? Yeah. Thanks, Emmanuel. Harsha, then Kevin.
Um, for me, I think most of what I've been thinking has been covered in the discussion. And for me personally, I think it'd be a good opportunity to learn about how I can get involved in governance of the chain itself. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it.
Yep. Very cool. Kevin and then Monique.
I just want to remark that I have added into the notes a week ago and a half some positive, negative, and thoughts. So I already added that, but yeah, let's keep it on, guys. It's really nice. So let's continue.
Nice. Dig it. That's cool. Monique and then Nadia.
I don't have any comments at this time. Thanks, I'll pass.
Okay, thanks, Monique. Nadia and then Nelson.
Wow, there's like so much to this. I was at the Kenya delegate synthesis over the weekend, and one of the things was about, for governance to function, we need participation, like the involvement of people. And I think this really builds a bridge to that in a lot of ways. It builds in a technical way where you're helping people to actually achieve the things that need to be done in order for us to have governance. You're sort of demystifying governance also, because it's one thing to know what needs to be done, and then it's another thing to know how, and then it's another thing to actually do it. So the potential for engagement here is really cool. And I definitely agree with Steve. I think that, if you're looking for someone to help you through that process, it's a very different thing to come through an avenue where someone is more politically motivated versus like a deep care about the ecosystem. And I think that that is something that Gimbalabs always has demonstrated and really continues to do that. And then I always love models. So I think we're creating a lot of different ways that people can think about becoming a DREP. It's a very non-traditional way. It's going to utilize different aspects of both tooling and education and community, and that is really robust. So yeah, it's an exciting thing. It really serves a spectrum of people, not just one kind of person in one way that they get involved.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you. Thank you. Nelson and then Scott.
Yeah, it was an amazing conversation we had today. Yeah, I just want to repeat, like, one thing that stood out is that Steve mentioned something like, we know that there are people outside, our space that we know that we won't necessarily react like them. And I think that's a deep idea, that what we stand for should be, spoken out and, relate to the public. Like that's our ideals, right? What Gimbalabs stand for, and that needs to be, represented it there outside. Yeah. And in terms of the tooling, yeah, I think we should start with something small so that we can, get to the DREP status, and then, the idea of being out there and actually starting to do this vote is that for all the praises we get for the things that we're going to do, and for all the criticisms that we're going to get for the way that we do, I think there's always an, upside that, we can convert something to an actionable item to improve ourselves, right? So being not there, doing nothing, and, being there and doing something, I think that's the difference. And if we start to do something, we'll probably know the path to, improve ourselves and learn things. So yeah, that's the biggest thing that I'm excited about for this. Yeah.
Oh man, love it, love it, love it. Scott and then Sebastian.
Well, this is the second meeting I've been to in Gimbalabs since I've been back in the blockchain Cardano community. Greatly appreciate these talks and the thought process that goes with them. And I was really active, I guess, back in 2022. And I intend to get back in, and I'll help out where and when I can with Gimbalabs and anything else that needs to be built out to help support this particular proposal, or any other proposal for that matter.
Cool. Oh man, it's super great to see you. I mean, really, really, yeah, I could gush a little bit about what Scott does and the way he was active in those times before. But Sebastian and then James.
Hey, everybody. I think the proposal is in pretty good shape to try it. Safe enough to try. And yeah, I think this is a good way to participate actively in governance and all it's happening today. Participation is always good for us. And I'm feeling good with this proposal. Thanks.
Love it. Thanks. And James, bring us home.
Yeah, thanks for this conversation, everybody. I keep thinking of this idea that, if Cardano is ever gonna matter, then whoa, it's really gonna matter. And it's a kind of funny mantra that I have that helps me keep a foot here, appreciating everything we're doing right now, but grounding it in the idea that, wow, like if we're successful, the way we operate right now is really going to matter. And so I think we're doing a really good job creating patterns that we can grow on. And I'm excited to move from the shared recognition of what we're doing here to the details of what we're actually going to do with this proposal. And so the one thing I want to improve continually from this process is once we decide to do something, making sure that we're talking about specifics of what we're going to do. I think we do still have some room to grow there, but that too is part of the process, right? Like how we do that is part of what matters, and it's what we want to bake into this thing. So always like a little bit self-referential on the tooling and the processes, but I think that's the exciting opportunity.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. I think that's got us to the I feel like we've had a great discussion, and I can echo all these sentiments. I'm super glad that everyone really participated, and that's something wonderful. It really shows that this is a proposal that does resonate. There are opportunities. It is something that we can respond to, that it is that we have energy to respond to, and that it will make a positive impact in the way that we want to have an impact. So I think we can talk about next steps. I think what James has said about getting into the specifics, and that sort of an older pattern about sort of talking about something in a general sense, but the proposal and the spaces really do you focus that and help us to become specific. And then one of the things, after the impacts and benefits down there, one of the things that I always look at and I really like is the resources required. So what exactly? So we've talked about the possibilities and the impacts and like why we want to do it, et cetera. That's just the resources. Then it's like, what is the ask? Whether it's time or people. So that might be something to look at. Or if you, after this conversation, you can look at this and add things into this proposal format. And that will get us into the specifics and then hopefully clarify, what the next step is, and what are the specifics of the proposal? What's going to be asked and what's going to be built. But this conversation has sort of given us the quite a bit of notes about how to spin that down, how to have something specific come out of it. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, and I mentioned it before, was that several different proposals can respond. And that's, I think, an S3 thing, respond to the driver.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole DREP thing doesn't have to be one giant proposal. It could be many proposals or several proposals. And it's fairly easy to do. So if you're listening to this recording or if you're in the room, it's very easy to join Gimbalabs, get an account, and start a proposal. It's really encouraged. It's one of the things that we look at as a successful thing. So if you've seen this and you're like, oh, I have a very specific idea, you can create this proposal very easily, create a new proposal, and go from there and join these open space governance sessions on Thursdays.
Mm-hmm. And Newman, thank you. It's really nice to be able to lean on you to support facilitation and to hear your voice in here.
Hey,
and if anybody else,
I was gone for so long.
Man, yeah, it's good to have you back. And if anybody else wants to practice facilitation, always be sure to speak up. Okay. Obviously, Newman can pick it up anytime. I'm happy to pick it up when needed. But one of the goals for this space is we want to get everybody practicing that process of facilitation, because that's part of the technology, right? That's part of the protocol, the ability to get together, have a conversation, try to make sure multiple voices are heard, try to get to consensus and consent, and those are really hard things to do. So we need all the chances we can get to practice. None of us are perfect at it yet, but we're trying to create the space to try. So thanks, partner, for jumping in there today.
Hey, all right, you're welcome.
Yeah, this proposal needs a champion, right? It's still not at a point where we have a driver. Okay, we don't have a single sentence. We've gone for 2 long meetings now, and we still need this. So what I would say is, in order for this proposal to move forward, all of our last 2 weeks of conversation need to be changed into a sentence or two. And then we need to be able to look at the actual proposal in a way that we can decide if we're actually going to do it. Are these the right outcomes? Do there need to be other proposals? How is it actually going to work? How will it be evaluated? What's the timeline? And what's the budget required? All right, we need to do all of that, and we need someone or some group to step up and turn this into that final consentable proposal. So you don't have to volunteer for that now. Just know this is how things get done, right? So if you're sitting and feeling like you want this to be done, make sure to drive that process forward, okay?
Yeah. And that looks like coming to next week's thing or in the Discord. If you don't have access to edit this document, you can copy it and put it in, the document editor of your choice. Like how, yeah. I guess to clean it up and then make that nice tight proposal, the driver statement.
The goal is for each of these subheadings down here, title, background, all the way down to the review and adaptation plan, right? The goal is for people to be able to look at that document and say, yeah, I consent to that. I think that's safe enough to spend that much of people's time and that much money moving forward with this. Here's the people who are going to do it, and here's what we're going to achieve, right? So that's what needs to happen. And I don't think we can budget another meeting-long conversation for this, right? So
open space.
Right, at the open space. There's other proposals to consider. I'm excited to do the same process for the Asteria proposal if we can do that next week. So yeah, the next step for this proposal is to get to the point of being consented to.
Yeah, and now I follow so basically it needs a champion or what we call source that sort of takes it into sort of a semi-private thing that takes this community input, and really it's a paring down. It's just like, all right, based on this, and you take out a lot of stuff because you don't need everything. So it becomes more focused. Steve and I did this with the playground. So we went through a process like this, and the community really put things in, and then he and I sort of by ourselves went through a couple meetings where we copied over into basically a whole nother proposal that said, these are the things that people need to know in order to make a decision. So that's what we're looking for with this project now, I think, is a person or a group of people, a small group of people to finish it out and then bring it to a more a focused consent process, which means that they write up a good draft and then submit it, give it to the community to read, and then we schedule a time to do the consent process.
Good, thanks. Well, thanks, y'all. I got to jump real quick because there's another thing coming up, but thanks for the productive call, and here's doing it again next week. Thanks again,
All
y'all.
right, y'all. Bye. Bye. Thanks. Ciao.
Good day.